The Nexus chamber was a marvel of engineering, a circular expanse suspended in the gravitational balance of twin stars. Luminescent panels lined the chamber's curved walls, casting a gentle glow over the gathering of hundreds of alien delegates. Their faces, some scaled, others furred or crystalline, watched the center stage with rapt attention. All eyes were on High Chancellor Vorix of the Xandha Dominion. "Humanity is a virus," Vorix began, his deep, resonant voice filling the chamber. His spindly form stood tall, his multifaceted eyes shifting colors as he scanned the assembly. "They infect, multiply, and spread, disrupting the balance of our galaxy. They have ignored our protocols, broken trade agreements, and flaunted centuries of tradition. Today, we decide if they are a species worthy of trust, or one we must contain." The murmurs began, soft ripples of agreement and dissent that spread among the delegates. Vorix gestured, and holographic projections appeared around him. One showed human freighters bypassing established trade routes, while another displayed footage of an armed human fleet fending off an older galactic navy with startling precision. "Observe," Vorix continued. "They colonize worlds without consultation, exploit resources with reckless abandon, and deploy unorthodox strategies against our fleets. The evidence is undeniable. They are a threat to order." From her seat among the Council's inner circle, Ambassador Alara Voss of Earth clenched her fists. The weight of the accusations pressed heavily on her, but her expression betrayed nothing. She had been preparing for this day since humanity's growing prominence began to spark unease among the older species. When Vorix finally concluded, his gaze settled on her. "Ambassador Voss, do you deny these charges?" Alara stood, her tailored black suit catching the chamber's light. Her voice was calm but sharp enough to cut through the tension. "I don't deny humanity's impact. But what you call disruption, I call progress. What you label chaos, I call adaptability. We've saved lives, stabilized failing systems, and brought solutions where others saw only problems." A quiet scoff echoed from a nearby delegate. Alara turned her head, locking eyes with a reptilian figure from the Zorith Collective. "I can list examples if you prefer," she continued. "Human engineers repaired your atmospheric domes when your worlds faced collapse. Human diplomats brokered peace between the Archon and Velos factions after centuries of war. If that's a virus, perhaps the galaxy could use more of it." The chamber buzzed with renewed murmurs, some supportive, others skeptical. Vorix, unshaken, spread his long, clawed hands. "And what of the trade disruptions? The unauthorized colonization of systems? Your fleet's refusal to comply with galactic protocols? Progress cannot come at the expense of order." "Order?" Alara repeated, her tone laced with quiet defiance. "Order is a convenient excuse for stagnation. Humanity isn't breaking the rules because we're reckless, we're breaking them because they're outdated. The galaxy is changing, Chancellor. Adapt or fall behind." The room fell silent. Alara took a steadying breath, using the pause to gauge the assembly. Some delegates nodded subtly, while others exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity had allies, but they were few and cautious. She couldn't afford to alienate them. A neutral voice broke the silence. It belonged to Delegate Kava of the Kelnari, whose translucent skin shimmered faintly. "Ambassador Voss raises a point, but so does the High Chancellor. If humanity's methods are disruptive, how do you justify them? Can you provide clarity on your intentions?" Alara nodded, grateful for the opening. "Humanity's intention is survival," she said, her voice steady. "We come from a planet where adaptability meant the difference between life and extinction. That trait defines us. But survival isn't just about us, it's about building a future for all of us. We're not here to dominate. We're here to contribute." Vorix let out a low, dismissive hum. "Charming rhetoric. But intentions mean little when actions speak louder. Perhaps the Council should consider sanctions to curtail humanity's expansion before it spirals out of control." The suggestion sent a ripple of alarm through the chamber. Alara's heart pounded, but she forced herself to stay composed. She stepped forward, her voice rising with conviction. "Sanctions? Against a species that's done nothing but thrive in a galaxy that welcomed us? Against a people who solved problems others deemed unsolvable? I challenge this council to consider who truly benefits from such a decision. Is it the galaxy, or is it those afraid of change? Her words hung in the air. Voryx's mandibles clicked softly, a sign of irritation. You tread dangerously, Ambassador. And you underestimate us. Alara shot back. Humanity isn't going anywhere, Chancellor. Not because we defy the Council, but because we have earned our place. The chamber erupted in debate, voices overlapping in a cacophony of arguments. Alara returned to her seat, her heart still racing. She knew she had struck a nerve with Voryx, but she also knew this was far from over. As the session adjourned, one of her aides, a young officer named Kale, approached her with urgency. Ambassador, we intercepted a message during the session. It's coded, but the origin matches a Dominion relay. Alara's brow furrowed. What does it say? Kale hesitated. It mentions a location near the Xandha border. And it references a final phase. Alara's stomach tightened. She glanced toward Voryx, who was already leaving the chamber, his gait calm and deliberate. Whatever he was planning, it wasn't just about humanity's trade routes or military tactics. It was something far more sinister. Decode it, she ordered. And prepare a briefing. This isn't just politics, it's war. As the lights dimmed in the Nexus chamber, Alara felt the weight of the galaxy's eyes on her. The fight for humanity's future had only begun. Alara Voss sat in her private quarters aboard the Nexus orbital station, her desk a clutter of hollow screens and intercepted transmissions. The coded message her aide had brought earlier had been decoded, just enough to stir unease. The coordinates pointed to a location near the Xandha Dominion's border, a contested trade route notorious for skirmishes and disappearances. The phrase, final phase, hovered in her mind like a storm cloud. Kale, she called, her voice cutting through the hum of the chamber's air filtration system. The young officer stepped forward, datapad in hand. Ambassador? What's the progress on verifying this message? She asked, gesturing at the hologram. Kale hesitated. It checks out. Origin traces back to Dominion frequencies, but the encryption is beyond standard protocols. Whoever sent this didn't want it intercepted, which makes it all the more suspicious. Alara leaned back, her fingers tapping the armrest of her chair. And the coordinates? A small moon near the Dominion's outer territories. No registered outposts, but our scans show anomalous energy readings, possibly a covert base. Alara's jaw tightened. Voryx is up to something. This can't just be about humanity. It's bigger. I can feel it. Kale nodded but remained silent. He knew better than to press when she was in this mood. Alara stood, smoothing her jacket. We need allies, she said. But not the kind who make noise. The kind who dig. Later that evening, Alara met with Admiral Track of the Thran Coalition in a secluded chamber reserved for private negotiations. The Thran, a hulking amphibian species, were known for their military prowess and strategic neutrality. Track, with his broad shoulders and a voice like grinding stones, listened intently as Alara outlined the intercepted message. So, Track said, his bulbous eyes narrowing, you believe Voryx is orchestrating something beyond the Council's sanctions? I don't just believe it, Alara replied. I'm certain. This message isn't a coincidence, and Voryx's aggression today was too rehearsed. He's hiding something, and I need proof to expose him before the Council. Track rumbled a low, thoughtful sound. If what you suspect is true, it would explain Dominion fleets spotted near unclaimed trade routes. They're consolidating power while the Council focuses on you. Alara leaned forward. Then help me. I need a team to investigate the coordinates. Discreetly. Track studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. This will not end well if you're wrong, Voss. But if you're right, the galaxy owes humanity more than suspicion. I'll deploy a stealth vessel under your command. Alara exhaled, the weight on her shoulders easing slightly. Thank you, Admiral. The next day, Scholar Ixtar of the Zelian Archivists joined her in her quarters. The Zelians, beings of crystalline form, were the keepers of galactic law and historical records. If anyone could unearth Voryx's past actions, it was Ixtar. I must admit, Ixtar said, their voice a harmonious blend of tones. The Dominion's methods have always been unorthodox. But overt subterfuge? That would be unprecedented. Voryx thrives on the Council's fear of change, Ilara said. But fear alone doesn't explain this. I need records, trade logs, fleet movements, anything that connects him to these coordinates. Ixtar tilted their crystalline head, the light refracting through their body. Accessing such records will violate several Council privacy statutes. Ilara smiled faintly. I'm asking you to bend the rules, not break them. Humanity's future might depend on it. For a moment, Ixtar was silent. Then, with a melodic sigh, they replied, Very well. But if we're discovered, I will disavow this conversation. Understood, Ilara said. Thank you. 2 days later, the stealth vessel returned from its mission. Ilara sat in the operations room with Kale, Track, and Ixtar as the covert team's transmission played on the main holoscreen. The leader of the team, a grizzled human operative named Captain Dren, appeared on the screen, his expression grim. We infiltrated the moon's surface and located the Dominion base. It's a weapons manufacturing facility, Ambassador, illegal by Council standards. The room grew tense. Ilara's eyes narrowed. What kind of weapons? Dren's voice turned sharper. Prototypes. Something we've never seen before. High-energy plasma cannons, capable of wiping out entire fleets in seconds. And that's not the worst of it. Ilara leaned forward. Go on. There are plans for deployment. Voryx isn't just building weapons, he's preparing for war. The final phase isn't about humanity. It's about a galaxy-wide power grab. A heavy silence fell over the room. Track broke it first, his deep voice carrying a note of alarm. If this is true, the Dominion could destabilize the Council itself. Ixtar added. And humanity would be the scapegoat, distracting the Council while Voryx consolidates his position. Ilara's mind raced. We need this evidence presented to the Council. Dren, did you retrieve any physical proof? Dren hesitated. We transmitted schematics and visual footage before extraction, but we were compromised. 2 of my team didn't make it out. The Dominion knows someone was there. Ilara's heart sank. Understood, Captain? Thank you. The transmission ended. Ilara turned to Track and Ixtar. We have what we need, but we're out of time. Voryx will move to discredit us before we can act. Track's fists clenched. The Council won't be easily swayed without direct confrontation. Are you prepared for the backlash? Ilara nodded firmly. This isn't just about humanity anymore. If we don't stop Voryx, the galaxy pays the price. That night, Ilara stood on the observation deck, staring out at the swirling stars. The burden of leadership pressed heavily on her, but she couldn't falter. Humanity's survival, and perhaps the galaxy's future, depended on her ability to outmaneuver one of the most cunning beings in the Council. As she watched the stars, a single thought steeled her resolve. If Voryx wants a fight, he'll get one. The Nexus Council reconvened in an emergency session, the tension in the chamber palpable. Rumors of covert operations, illegal weapons, and looming war had spread like wildfire, and every delegate was on edge. Ilara Voss entered with a steely determination, her stride confident despite the storm of doubt swirling around her. By her side were Track and Ixtar, their presence lending silent support. High Chancellor Voryx stood at the podium, his expression calm but his multifaceted eyes flickering with subtle irritation. Esteemed delegates, he began, his voice smooth and calculated. It has come to my attention that certain allegations are being whispered against the Dominion, wild, baseless claims meant to sow discord within this Council. Ilara remained seated, her gaze fixed on Voryx as he continued. His words were measured, but she could sense the undercurrent of panic beneath his polished demeanor. He knew she had evidence, and he was trying to preempt her move. Ambassador Voss, Vorik said, turning toward her with a mock expression of concern. I understand you have something to say. Please enlighten us with your latest observations. Elara rose, her voice firm but composed. Thank you, Chancellor. I do have something to say, something the Council cannot afford to ignore. She activated a small device on her wrist, and the chamber's central hologram flickered to life. Images of the Dominion's covert facility appeared, accompanied by schematics of the experimental weapons and recordings of Dominion operatives discussing deployment plans. Gasps rippled through the assembly, and several delegates exchanged alarmed whispers. This is not a wild claim, Elara said, her tone sharp. This is evidence of a deliberate attempt to destabilize the galaxy. High Chancellor Vorix has been using humanity as a scapegoat to distract this council while he amasses illegal weapons and prepares for war. Vorix's mandibles clicked, a rare slip in his otherwise stoic composure. This is an outrageous fabrication, he hissed. You expect us to believe these images, conveniently discovered by human operatives? A species already under suspicion? Elara met his glare without flinching. The footage and schematics were independently verified by the Thran Coalition and the Zelian archivists, she said, gesturing toward Track and Ixtar. Would you accuse them of fabrication as well? Track stepped forward, his imposing frame casting a shadow across the chamber. The Thran Coalition confirms the authenticity of these findings. The Dominion's actions are a clear violation of galactic law. Ixtar added, their crystalline forms shimmering under the chamber lights. And the Zelian archivists have cross-referenced the data. There is no doubt these weapons exist, nor any doubt of their intended purpose. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, some demanding sanctions against the Dominion, others questioning the validity of the evidence. Vorix raised a clawed hand, his voice cutting through the noise. Enough! He bellowed. This is a conspiracy, orchestrated by humanity and their so-called allies. They fear the Dominion's influence and seek to weaken us with lies. Elara stepped forward, her voice unwavering. The only conspiracy here is yours, Vorix. But if you're so confident in your innocence, then allow the Council to inspect the facility. Let the truth speak for itself. The chamber fell silent. Vorix's multifaceted eyes flickered, and for a moment, Elara saw the calculation behind them. He was cornered, and he knew it. But instead of conceding, he played his final card. Very well, he said, his tone icy. If an inspection is what the Council desires, I will comply. But let us not forget the disruptions humanity has caused, the trade routes violated, the protocols ignored. If we are to investigate the Dominion, then humanity must face equal scrutiny. Elara's jaw tightened, but she kept her composure. Humanity has nothing to hide, she said. We welcome the Council's investigation, as long as it applies the same standards to all species, including the Dominion. A murmur of agreement spread through the delegates. The Council President, an elder Archon with a voice like flowing water, raised her hand for silence. It is decided, she said. A neutral investigative team will be dispatched to the coordinates provided by Ambassador Voss. The findings will determine our course of action. Vorix's gaze bore into Elara, cold and venomous. You've made a grave mistake, he said softly as the session adjourned. The investigation team, composed of delegates from neutral factions, set off immediately. Elara watched the hollow feed from her quarters, her stomach a knot of tension. The footage showed the barren moon, its surface broken only by the entrance to the Dominion's hidden base. As the team ventured inside, the truth became undeniable. Rows of weapons, far beyond anything the Council had sanctioned, lined the walls. Advanced plasma cannons, automated drones, and experimental warships sat in ominous silence, waiting for deployment. The investigators' expressions ranged from shock to fury as they documented everything. Elara allowed herself a small, grim smile. The evidence was irrefutable. Vorix's plans had been exposed. The Council reconvened the following day, the chamber charged with a sense of impending judgment. Vorix stood at the center, his composure cracking under the weight of the evidence. The Dominion has violated our most sacred laws, the Council President declared. High Chancellor Vorix, you are hereby stripped of your title and authority. The Dominion will face sanctions, and its weapons will be dismantled under Council supervision. Vorix's mandibles flared, his voice a venomous hiss. You think this will stop us? The Dominion will not be subdued by weak-willed bureaucrats. Elara rose from her seat, her voice cutting through the chamber. This isn't about subduing the Dominion. It's about protecting the galaxy from those who think power is theirs to take. Humanity may be new to the stars, but we understand one thing better than most. Progress is built on cooperation, not domination. Her words hung in the air, a stark contrast to Vorix's venom. The council erupted in applause, a rare display of unity in the face of division. As the session ended, Elara felt the weight on her shoulders lighten, though only slightly. The fight wasn't over. There would always be those who sought power at the expense of others. But for now, humanity had proven its worth, not just as survivors but as contributors to a better galaxy. Kale approached her with a rare smile. You did it, Ambassador. Elara nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond the chamber. We did it. But the real work starts now. The stars shimmered, vast and endless, a reminder of both the challenges and possibilities ahead.